What if your biggest leadership problem isn't your workload or your team? It's the way your brain is wired to survive. In today's episode, I'm joined with Mitch Weisburgh, an educator, author, and creator of the MindShifting framework, to explore why so many of us lead from a place of fear, over-control, or burnout, and how to shift into clarity, collaboration, and calm. Mitch has helped thousands of educators and leaders around the world rewire their mindsets, and his upcoming AI-powered course is about to take that mission to a whole new level. If you're ready to lead with more ease and less ego, this is a conversation you don't want to miss. Hello, Mitchell. How are you today, sir?
I'm great, Andy. Thank you so much for having me on Empowered Learning. Looking forward to talking.
You bet. It's my absolute pleasure to have you on right here. So lots of things we're going to talk about today, but I want to just hit it right out of the park here, right as we get started here, and start with this one right here. You talk often about leaders operate unknowingly, which I think that's an important aspect of this, unknowingly in this survival mode.
hmm
So give some folks some telltale signs of how you know if you are stuck in that survival mode, and then what is the cost of staying there, not getting out of it?
So the interesting thing to me is, well, there's so many interesting things, but one is that almost all of us are in survival mode almost all the time.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
if you're living and breathing, you're in survival mode. But given that, if you are sure of something, you're almost always in survival mode.
Okay.
Period. So if you're sure that you're right, if you're sure that somebody else is wrong, if you're sure that there's only one way to do something, if you're sure you have to do something, if you're sure that you can't do something, that's a sign that you're in survival mode, because survival mode comes from, our survival instincts, which come from the limbic parts of the brain, and it's very binary. Something is either good or it's bad. Period. There's nothing in between. So
Okay.
when you're sure you're in survival mode, what
Interesting.
that means is that also kicks in all of the cognitive biases that that any of us have studied, confirmation bias.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now all of a sudden I'm drawing a blank, but there's
Mm-hmm.
probably 30 or 40 different biases, which means that you're unable to pick up information that contradicts what you're sure of. That's the way
Okay.
the brain works.
Right.
You're unable to use critical thinking. You're unable
Uh-huh.
to use your creativity. You're unable to use empathy. You're
Right.
unable to collaborate with others. All
Right.
those things that you really want to do as a leader,
Mm-hmm.
you can't do when you're absolutely sure of something, and
Mm-hmm.
or when you're in survival mode.
Okay.
And sometimes just being aware of that is enough to then open you up. It's like, there I am again. I am so sure this person
Mm-hmm.
is wrong.
Right.
And sometimes that's just enough to put you into what I call sage mode or resourceful mode, or accessing all the powers of your prefrontal cortex.
Right. Right. I love it. No, I never would have thought of surety as being a telltale sign of that. I think that's very interesting as to how you brought that up. And then in the idea of the biases, I've got two young boys that, um, they've been in and out of relationships and that kind of stuff. And it's things that you see outside of that. And I envision like the blinders, right, on horses, right? When you're sure of something, oh, this is going to work out, or oh, this is this or that. To your point, you see nothing else, right? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Nothing comes in when you are
hmm
sure of something, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's stay there for a little bit. What
And I'm
happened?
sure, and I'm sure I'm right about this too.
What? Very well done. Very well done there. Let's stay there for just a second and tell me what happens if people, to your point, are not aware of being in that survival mode, because like you said, people are unknowingly there and they just stay. They are ever present there, not working on getting out, but they just, well, what is the cost of staying in that mode?
Well, the cost of staying in that mode is that you are not resourceful. So
Ah,
that's, I
okay.
think, the number one cost of staying there. Sometimes, when we're in survival mode, we go into blame mode, or we go into
Mhm.
victim mode. Like, these things always happen to me. This person always
Right.
picks on me. I never get good luck. There's a person named Shirzad Shamin who I have read about, and I took his coaching program, and he calls that keeping your hand on the hot stove.
Okay.
So you know that if you touch a hot stove, that's really valuable information because you
Hmm.
know to pull your hand away. But
Right.
being stuck in survival mode is like keeping your hand on the hot
Yeah.
stove,
Right.
even though the warning part of it has already happened.
Hmm. So I'm pretty sure I know this name. Is this what you speak of?
Exactly, exactly.
Positive
Positive
intelligence.
intelligence. Yep.
Yeah, when you're talking about sage mode, that's a term that they use, and um knowing your, what do they call them? The starts with an A,
Well, there's the five powers of the sage mode. There's
right? The other side though, the
the saboteurs.
that is, yeah, saboteurs,
Right.
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. No, very good stuff. I Now that you said that, it very much makes sense. The tie between your work and his work and that kind of stuff. So
Hmm.
very good. I love it. Very good. Okay, so now that everybody's just on the edge of their seat, wanting to find out more, let's dive in a little bit to your background and kind of what got you to this stage. Tell me a little bit about your growing up and what your journey's been like thus far.
Well, it's like you growing up, I happen to have been very lucky. I grew up in a really warm family with a lot of support. And so, I hear so many stories about dysfunctional families.
Right.
That was not my experience at all. I I started my first business in 1981. You had a guest, I guess, a couple weeks ago, Debbie Cunningham.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And she talked about how, she learned WordStar on her own. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, my first business starting in 1981 was teaching business people how to use computers. And I
Okay.
happened to have started with VisiCalc, which,
Okay.
spreadsheet rather than WordStar. But quickly, VisiCalc, WordStar, DBase 2, those were the big three back then. And the thing that and actually, and she seems to have picked up on this too, but that typically the way we taught back then was, okay, theoretically, this is what a microprocessor is, and this
Hmm.
is what the CPU does, and blah 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 blah, and you're in a lecture hall. And to me, it was like, something people want to know how to use this to be more effective. And so
Hmm.
that's how I ended up teaching just a
Okay.
series of problems that got more and more complex
Hmm.
as you learn more and more and you are capable of solving them. So I
Hmm.
ran that business for about 19 years, but towards the end of the 1990s, it was pretty clear that teaching business people how to use computers was going to be a shrinking business, and so I
Right.
wanted to get into online learning. I
Okay.
first got into developing an application for kids to prepare for the SAT online. I did
Interesting.
that with a very distant relative. But when we were raising capital, this one venture capitalist came up to me and said, Mitch, what you've done is really, really interesting. This is the way people should learn online. But your partner knows nothing about sales and marketing
Mm-hmm.
in education,
Okay.
and this business is going to go nowhere. So you
Wow.
need to start consulting to education publishers. We're going to need to take their textbooks and
Okay.
become much more online. And so
Right.
I kind of migrated to a value to I guess consulting to publishing companies, and my first really big contract was to design. It ended up being about 32, 33 courses for Thompson Learning that wanted to create an
Okay.
online high school.
Nice.
Um,
Okay.
and from there, I started, I migrated to advising, well, actually, with this person who had been the venture capitalist, because her background was sales and marketing and
Mm-hmm.
finance. And so we formed a partnership to advise education publishers on how to thrive in this area that we were going to be moving to, which everything was going to be digital. And we
Right.
worked together for 10 years until she retired. I
Mm.
kind of migrated and became known for um, my expertise in game-based learning.
Okay.
And partially because of that, I got an email at one point. Well, I guess two things happened at the same time. One is I got an email from a university in Niger, of all places, not Nigeria, Niger, Niger. It's in probably the
Okay.
poorest country in the world.
Oh, wow.
Um, but from the university saying, we're training our people to lead Africa forward into the
Hmm.
21st century. We want some ed tech executives to talk to them about education technology in the US.
Okay.
So that was number one.
Right.
Number two, I'd been in advising on education technology now for 15, 16 years.
Right.
And I went into it with the idea that, something technology is going to give us this great leap forward, and every kid is going to get a chance
Hmm.
to be able to live a fulfilling, happy life. And
Hmm.
15 years later, like yes, we're using technology, but kids aren't learning better in school.
Right.
They're
Right.
not prepared for their lives as adults at school.
Right.
So it's like I'm thinking, education technology is not leading us where we want to go. I get this email invitation to Niger, and I'm thinking, talking to them about education technology is not really what turns me on. You know what kids really need? Kids really need to learn how successful people make sense of situations and
Oh,
how
okay.
they stay in that frame of mind. So
Right.
I wrote back and I said, I really don't think this is going to help your undergraduates very much, but you know what I could do? I could give them a talk on sense making, how to make sense of the world in a way that allows you to be successful
Yeah.
and stay in success mode. And they came back and said, well, can you come out and teach for a semester? And I'm like, I don't think I want to give up everything and move to Niger for a whole semester. But
Hmm.
I'll tell you, so we agreed that I would do a 2-day workshop twice, okay, for
Okay.
60, 70, well, I'm going to call them kids, but they're 18 to 25 year olds,
Hmm.
okay? But I'm going to do, these 2-day workshops. And we kind of agreed in July that I'd fly out there and do it. I was in February, and then it kind of hit me, like with as because you're an entrepreneur also.
Hmm.
It's like you see a problem, you know how to solve it, you say you're going to solve it, you get the agreement, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, what was going through my mind? How am I going to do this, right? Because I never
Nope.
taught this before. Okay,
Right.
I've
Right.
been to a lot of classes, I've read a lot of
Sure.
books, I thought about it a lot, but
Right.
I had 6 months, so I read
Mm.
books on all different ways that people make decisions, like psychology, neuroscience, cognitive science, um, uh, decision making, sense making,
Mm.
economics, military strategy, all
Wow.
these different areas. And everybody, sales, influence, everybody had their own idea about what you should do. But really, nobody, in my opinion, nobody really pulled it all together. So I figured I'm going to take bits and pieces from all these different areas, the
Hmm.
things that have worked in my life that really
Right.
resonated, the things that were research based. I put it together into a 2-day course. There were three elements to the course to be taught over 2 days. One element is how do you know when you're stuck and how do you get into a resourceful frame of mind?
Right.
The second element was how do you look at situations so that even if the first thing you try doesn't work, you can use that information to continue to get better and not panic or go into blame mode or anything. And then the third element in that was no matter what you're going to do, you're going to have to work with people. And the
Okay.
ways that we've learned how to work with people when we disagree with them,
Okay.
most of them don't work.
Right.
Some of them work for a very short time, and a lot of them actually end up making the situation worse. So, what does 50, 60 years worth of research say? How do we influence people when we disagree with them and we have to have an ongoing relationship with them anyhow? So, those were the three. The two I'm going to go back to is, how do you
Speaking.
react to situations? And you might call it, iterating through failure, or how do you prepare to fail? Because chances are whatever you're going to do is the first thing isn't gonna work, and you're going to need to take the
Mhm.
information and continue to get better. So I came up with that. I flew to Niamey, Niger, um, was amazed at the poverty and just kind of not completely relevant, but so you can look at me and I'm Caucasian, right?
A little bit.
Um, you know, uh, I understood what it's like to be in a really tiny minority because I would walk on the street and there'd be nobody who is
Nope.
Caucasian. And in
Mm.
fact, there'd be like 30 or 40 people who would just converge on me.
Wow.
And the people in the university, they always kept three people around me
Really?
so that they could explain to everybody, no, no, this guy's a friend of ours. Leave him alone.
Right.
He's not trying to screw our country like all the other white
Right.
people are.
Yeah.
He's one of the good guys.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so I walk into the first class. I teach the first class over 2 days, and at the end, I'm like, and that's sense making, that's mind shifting, and the kids stood up and cheered.
Oh, that's awesome.
Isn't it?
You
So
can't get much
that
better than that.
no, no. So, and the same thing happened in the second one. So that's when I knew this is something we don't teach. We
Mm,
don't teach in schools. We don't. People don't learn how to do this. And yet, when people start understanding that just because they know something is true, that
mm,
that's just a story, and they can control their story,
mm,
and
mhm.
and when they are sure that they know how to do something, that if they can take a step back and open their minds up, very often they can find better ways of doing it.
Right.
That when they disagree with somebody, that doesn't mean they're right and the other person is wrong. They may be 90% right, but on
Right.
almost every case where you disagree with somebody,
Right.
there's something that you can learn from the other person. And just seeing those things and learning the techniques on how to do that was very empowering to them. And so since 2018, when I first did that, I've slowly transitioned to know, I have this mission, and I don't know how I'm going to do it. And maybe you can help, and maybe
Love to.
your listeners can help. But my mission is, how do we get a critical mass of people in the world? So there's 8 billion people in the world, right? How
Right.
do we get a
Right.
critical mass of people to know how to use these techniques? So first of all, they can live happier and more productive lives. But second of all, they learn the ways to working together to solve the problems that we all face as a civilization and as a world.
Mhm.
And so, it's a little bit arbitrary, but my arbitrary number is, how do we get 5 million people to understand these techniques?
Mm.
That's my mission.
Wow. Wow. That's a wonderful mission. And again, it's one of those things. I love the fact that you pointed out that as as uncomfortable as it is, sometimes you have to, I mean, everybody has a different analogy for it. Like you have to jump before you're building the ship as you set sail, you're building the plane as you take off, like however you want to word
Right.
that. But I mean, there's some truth to that. And and back to your point about entrepreneurs, you look in a lot of their stories, they are iterating. That's a perfect word for this. They are iterating constantly, right? They If you wait to get to 100%, quote unquote, which is back to that surety aspect, which is dangerous territory, right? If you wait to get to that 100%, there's 20 other entrepreneurs that had a similar idea that started iterating that are now light years ahead. I mean, just as an example, right? That could be
Yep.
light years
Yep.
ahead of you because you
Yep.
didn't start when you first had that idea. So I completely agree. 5 million.
5 million people.
Yep, I love it. Okay,
And I don't care whether those people learn from me.
there
I
you
don't
go.
care if they call it mind shifting.
Sure.
You're double right now. I'm not sure.
Yep, I had to.
Okay.
We were talking so fast. I wanted to bring up some
Okay.
of the notes from previous there.
Ah,
So yeah.
okay, okay. So I just, you can other people can teach it.
Mm,
I'm sure that there's other books, not just my book.
right.
I have mindshifting with Mitch.com.
Mm,
So people can get it from, I don't really care how people learn it. I just think, as a world, we need more people to understand how to be resourceful,
mhm.
resilient, and collaborative.
Right, right.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
Looky there. I think that would fall under me being resourceful, wouldn't you think?
And intuitive. Wow.
I love it. I love it. Very cool. So I love the diagram here because I would imagine. Let me see if I can make this. Hold on just a second here. I think I can make that where I can write on top of it. Hold on.
Sure.
This guy. That's not better. Right. Well, it was worth a shot. I can write over the top of it. So my question was or is, I'm assuming that the where the three of those intersect is the ultimate goal, right? Yes, it's great to be
Exactly.
resourceful. Yes, it's great to be collaborative, resilience. Obviously, you're going to have times that are more or less of those, but
Hmm.
the ultimate goal is to find this. What would you call the center of that?
Mind shifting. That's where mind
That
shifting
is
takes
mind
place.
shifting when you can
Right.
reach the middle of that. Okay, I got you.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So let's go back to a couple of you said the three main aspects that you were covering in that course, right? Know
Hmm.
if you're stuck, and then how to be resourceful in that state. And correct me or add to more of this if it needs to be. How to react in situations, especially when failure, and then how to
That and
work with.
that's, by the way, and that's resilience.
Yes. Okay. There we.
The
Oh,
resilience part of
resilience.
it.
I got you. Okay. And then
Okay.
how to work with people. That's the resourcefulness. Yes.
And collaborative. That's the
And
collaborative.
collaboration. Okay. Gotcha.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean that makes all the sense in the world. It is interesting though, and I mean you've heard in various degrees, right? There's nothing new under the sun. It's one of those things like you've done. Not that your work is not unique, but a lot of this is like, hey, there's all this wonderful work in the past, but to your point, it's all kind of disparate, right? There's nothing kind of brought together. Like,
Mhm.
how can we bring this together and say in this way and for these reasons? This is why this makes sense. All of the stuff before, we mentioned positive intelligence. That's great. This is taking that same thing, but tweaking it and adding a couple different things like that. So, kudos to you for seeing the need for something like that. I think that's really, really good.
Well, thanks. And as you brought up, virtually none of the ideas that are in any of this material are mine. It's just like I just happen to have the time or
Right,
the inclination to pull them together, but
right.
I'm not some genius or some incredibly I'm just a normal person who just happened to be the one to pull these things together, and then other
Right.
people will take what I've done and they'll bring it much further than I've been able to.
Right, right. Which I mean, I mean, we're touching on the empowering aspect of this, of helping people be their best self and learning and being resourceful and that kind of stuff. And then I think we're also hitting on the learning aspect of that is that every good leader wants
Mhm.
their followers and wants their. I mean, I'm thinking of like like their. If you're a leader of people, you want your people to succeed and to. I mean, if you're doing your best work, you may have to replace those awesome people because they have taken all those awesome concepts and are going to
Yep.
now go out and do wonderful things and expound upon the learnings that they've had with you.
Yeah, yeah. I think recently you had another guest, Masako Mai, if I'm pronouncing her
Yep,
name right.
yep. She was
Okay,
brilliant.
who is brilliant and incredibly inspiring. And one of the things that she does with people is she allows people to find the greatness within them.
Hmm.
And basically this is similar. We're trying to help people. Well, we're helping people find the greatness within them.
Hmm.
Just like as I'm talking, like one of my favorite stories, because I mostly teach teachers. If I
Hmm.
have, because the idea is if I teach the teachers, they're going to teach the kids. So this one,
Right.
I'm teaching this class, and this one teacher was explaining what happened this past weekend.
Hmm.
She says she and one friend have a third friend who was in an abusive relationship, and the two
Hmm.
women were going to help this woman and her kids move out of the house into a
Wow.
new apartment.
Okay.
And they had given this woman a list of things to do before they got there on a Saturday morning. They're both giving up their
Hmm.
Saturday morning to help her. Um, they get to the woman's house on Saturday morning, and she hasn't done thing one on the list. And so you can imagine the things going in her head, like, I'm giving up my Saturday. We're both taking our time. She did nothing. What's the matter with her? And
Hmm.
then she says, you know something? I just remembered from the course. She says, that's a limbic. That's a survival reaction.
Hmm. Hmm.
Let me quiet that. And she used the techniques, in the course to
Right.
quiet that down. And then she went in to say, so what's the most important thing to me? And with her friend, the second friend, what is the most important thing for us? And the most important thing was to help this woman
Hmm.
get out of her situation and start her life with her kids on a
Hmm.
positive note. And it's
Right.
like all of a sudden, this anger is
Hmm.
out. She's just thinking, well, how can we help her? And it kind of dawned on her, like, if you're in an abusive relationship and you're dealing with
Right.
your kids crying, the house, whatever you have to do to take care of the house, a partner who's beating you and abusing you, like, completing this list is not on the top three things that she has to deal
Right.
with every day. And it just
Right.
dawned on her, like, but it never would have dawned on her if she hadn't, maybe she would have understood that eventually. But from the
Hmm.
course, it's like, got it. This is
Hmm.
just my survival brain. I can quiet that. Oh my gosh, look what we want to do. And they
Right.
ended up spending the whole day. They got everything done. They moved the woman and her kids in. And at the end of the day, she says she felt that was one of the most moving days of her life.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible. Isn't it interesting though that how, you're and again, obviously they had that good intentions. They were taking their time off to go and spend with them. And but I would imagine if I could put myself in that situation, you would have thought coming into that situation that the good deed that I am doing is by being there and present and helping them move stuff, which yes, it was. But I would be willing to bet that their reaction, their pausing of like, hey, don't overreact, don't jump to, survival mode or whatever, like be empathetic, be mindful of where they're at right now. How this is my guess. I wonder if that lady's reaction to that situation was more impactful than the fact that she came over to help her move boxes.
I think it was. And empathy is not something that you can do when you're in survival mode, because
Hmm.
in survival
Okay.
mode, you're trying to connect with people so that you can do what you've already decided you're going to do.
Yeah.
Okay? You're looking to get them to do what you want them to do.
Right.
But empathy is really kind of connecting with them and
Hmm.
understanding and trying to meet both your needs. And
Right.
you can't do that
Yeah.
when you're stuck in your limbic brain,
Yeah.
anger,
Yeah.
anxiety, whatever.
Yeah. I love it. Very good. So you've already dropped a couple, specific research things that you've mentioned. What's one piece of science-backed advice that you wish more people actually used in their daily leadership?
Well, I think, now I'm forgetting the name of it, but there's the five, I guess, styles of
Mhm.
conflict resolution.
Okay. Yeah.
There's if you look it up, there's an instrument that measures it. It's I think it's $50 to take. But
Hmm.
understanding those that when you're conflicting with another person, there's a way that you handle it yourself. You may be in, what there's five. There's competing, which is like this is what you have to do. I don't,
Hmm.
you don't really care what their reaction is as long as they're
Right.
they're following you. There's accommodating, which
Hmm.
is, this person told me to do something, I'm going to do what they're going to do. There's avoiding,
Hmm.
moving away from it, and then there's collaborating and compromising, which in English are often thought of as synonyms, but
Hmm.
in decision making, they're considered two very different uh, animals.
Hmm.
Uh, Compromising is saying, it's kind of splitting the pie. You want this, I want this. I'll give you this, I'll take this, and we'll split it. Whereas collaborating is, let me really try to figure out what you want,
Hmm.
and let me explain what I want so that you understand it, and let's see if we can come up with
Hmm.
something that we hadn't thought of before that meets both of our
Right.
needs. Okay, so
Right.
those are the five different styles,
Hmm.
and understanding those five different styles, understanding what your default is, just gives you so much power. So
Hmm.
that's just another
Right.
another thing that I wish more people really understood.
Hmm. Very good. So I know that oftentimes um, people get into or get passionate about a certain aspect, whether that's teaching or a specific subject in this because of a personal experience. Did you ever hit a wall personally, either mentally, emotionally, physically, something like that, that forced you to practice some of these concepts that you help others to understand?
The funny thing is I've always been perfect.
Oh,
So
well, there you go. I finally found the one person.
right. Well, I hope people appreciate that I joke,
Yes, you're good.
So but I'm human, so like every day, little things like, like you're working on something, and and your wife comes in and interrupts your train of thought. It's
Mhm.
like, um, that causes or can cause, a limbic reaction. You're sitting at the table. I don't mean to pick on my wife all the time,
Yeah.
but you're sitting at the table, and your wife is doing something in the kitchen, and she says, how come you haven't taken out the trash? Okay,
Yeah.
now
Yep.
yes, she could have phrased that
Hmm.
in a more comfortable way. But the fact of the matter is that the trash needed to be taken out.
Hmm.
I'm doing nothing. So to
Right.
be able to reframe that,
Right.
okay, and to be able to, to realize, like, I'm getting angry. Well, wait a minute, let me calm that down.
Hmm.
What really should be happening here?
Hmm.
Every day.
Hmm.
Is there? Um, is there any one thing that's traumatic? We've all had, traumatic things. I think one of the most traumatic things for me was in my first business. My dad and I were partners, and he had insisted that we bring on a third partner.
Okay.
Um, and I after 2 or 3 years, like I realized that this partner was wrong,
Hmm.
and I met with my dad, and he finally agreed that I can get rid of him. I got rid of him. The day after getting rid of him, we're in the board meeting for this company that I'm thinking, wow, my dad and I, we can finally run this business. And he says, before the board meeting, now the board meeting has officially started, before we get down to any other business, there's something I need to say. He says, um, I don't think that Mitch has the ability to run a company. I don't think that he's particularly competent. I've never seen a sign that he's done anything well, but he's the one who made the decision we should get rid of this third partner. I wasn't going to stand in his way, so I let him do it. I think he's going to run the company in the ground. I don't want to be a part of it anymore. I'm leaving. Goodbye. And he walks out the room.
Who was this that did
My
that?
dad, my
Oh
dad.
no, I was hoping that was not the case. Oh
Yeah.
goodness.
So I would
Wow.
say, like that's one of the times where like, like what do
Yeah.
you
Goodness
I was
gracious.
shocked. There were
Yeah.
three independent board members. They were all shocked. We took a 10 or 15 minute break, and they came
Mm-hmm.
back and they said, your dad just had a really emotional reaction to something. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what got into him, but
Wow.
we went along with your idea of getting rid of the third partner because we think that you were right.
Mm-hmm.
And we this whole business was your idea. You
Mm-hmm.
developed the courses, you trained the people how to teach it, you trained the people how to sell it.
Right.
We have confidence in you.
Yeah. Goodness. Wow. That would I would say that's pretty traumatic, right? I mean, just
Yeah.
as far as like a punch in the gut of, bebopping along and then to have that kind of whop you upside the head. So wow. Yeah, I could see how that would propel you into wanting to, have just personally, right? I mean, that was kind of what the question was. Like
Yeah.
when stuff like this happens personally, how am I going to react? Am I going to react immediately? Am I going to take a beat? To think through like, okay, what's the best way to deal with this? Do I need a second? All of the different concepts. I'm sure we don't have time to go through all of those, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure that
And
that's a big
and
one.
and you're going to make mistakes too. And
Mhm.
so
Right.
so being able to recover from your mistakes and not beat up on yourself is
Hmm.
part of it as well.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I I I resonate with that one very, very well. I'm terrible about beating myself up. I know it's not helpful, not useful, but you're
And we
right.
all do it, right?
Yeah,
We all do it.
exactly. Exactly, exactly. Well, a couple things to just kind of wrap up here. I know you have an app that's launching soon. Can you tease us a little bit about what's available on the app and some different things that we can look forward to?
Sure. So I talked about the three different elements, and the first element is resourceful, being able to tap into the resourceful parts of your brain even when things are going wrong. So what I first taught, and that was one of the first courses that I taught to outsiders. And then to expand it more rapidly, I developed it into a book. So I have so I wrote a book on that part of mindfulness, of mind shifting. But then I figured, something, if I really want to scale this, let me develop an online course that teaches this, but not just from the standpoint of doing content, because in the class, what people really love is being coached through these techniques. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're in the process of developing a course with basically 30 AI mentor interactions. So each
Wow.
one of the different things, there's one called Perhaps I Can, where you're sure you can't do something and you open up your mind to be able to do it. Well, there's
Mm-hmm.
an AI mentor where you go on and she asks you, what's something that you can't do, and she walks you through step by step. And then you can
Mm-hmm.
pick another one, and eventually you learn how to do it for yourself, and you learn how to do it for others because you've been through it a few times.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that course should be out. Uh, something I'm going to be really conservative. I'm going to say that course will be out October 1st, 2025.
Okay.
Um, but if somebody contacts me, um, I can give them a way to test out some of the features of that course now.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
my website is mindshiftingwithmitch.com. There's a contact me on that, so people can go to that website. They can contact me, and if they want to try pieces of that out, I can give them a URL so that they can try it out.
Awesome. And I will put this in the notes. It's mindshiftingwithmitch.com. Yes.
Exactly. Yep.
Awesome. All right. Let me get this down here so I can take a screenshot with Mitch. Sorry, my handwriting's going to crap right now. .com. All right. Good to go. All right. Well, Mitch, this has been super fun. I'm already seeing some fun things that you and I are going to be able to talk about offline, just as far as some different collaborations.
Oh, that'd
Um,
be great. That'd be
yeah,
great.
I think we would have a blast with that. So, but to kind of put a pin on this conversation, I would love to get your take on my three key questions.
Okay.
Uh, who is a leader that you most admire and try to emulate?
So if I, yeah, rather than, part of me says don't pick a person, okay?
Okay.
And the reason I say don't pick a person is because there's a person who I have admired, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, if you've heard of him. He
Right.
was the person. It's Mihaly is his first name, and there aren't very many people with that first name, so you'll find
Right. Say it one
you'll
more time.
you'll find him.
Right.
Mihaly. And he did a whole book on, people who were creative and incredibly successful. And
Okay.
one of his major, big points in the book is we as people look for heroes
Mm.
and we make people into these
Mm.
mythical characters. But actually, there's thousands of people who make everything possible, and 999 of them you never hear about.
Right.
So I would prefer not to pick a person, but because
Hmm.
he's the one who said that, I'm going to pick Mihai Csikszentmihalyi.
Very good. Very good. I agree. There's a bunch of folks out there that are doing amazing things that maybe don't get the headlines or whatever. And yeah, there's a lot of people to learn from. Back to that
Yep.
idea of surety. I that's really going to stick with me, of this idea of, like, once you think that you have it all figured out, that's kind of the sure sign that you don't have it figured out at this point.
Right. That
Yep.
that's where good ideas go to die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree. You strike me as someone that is constantly learning, constantly, adapting and finding out new things. What's a learning that really impacted you in the last year?
So, so this is another one that I'm going to give you something out of left field.
Okay.
Okay. And that is that I found out this year that I had a stage 2 melanoma.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that really causes you to rethink a lot of
I would
things.
imagine.
Okay. So I would say that's the number one
Hmm.
thing that caused me
Okay.
to learn the most is finding out that I had this cancer, and I wasn't invincible. Um,
Hmm.
and thinking about, well, so what are the things that are most important to you? And it's, there's no sign that I have it still. So, that's the good news. But
That's wonderful news.
uh, that was the thing that probably learned the most from.
Sure, sure. Brings definitely some clarity and some perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yep, I love it. All right. So, last question for you, sir. How would you empower learning for future generations? You obviously have a
that's
lot.
my whole mission.
I
What do
know.
you,
That's why
like
you and
what you
I,
talk about a
perfect.
softball question.
There you
So
go.
yeah, so what my original thoughts were is that if I start teaching teachers,
Hmm.
the teachers then teach the kids these skills because these are the skills that are going to make the kids, even live happy, productive lives.
Hmm.
Um, and everything that I've done, putting it in book form, putting it in the application form, training people how to teach these courses because there's now two or three other people who could conceivably teach these courses.
Hmm.
Um, my course is listed in New York State and in Washington State, so any
Okay.
educator in New York State or in the state of Washington can take my courses free. I would like to make it available in other districts and other states so
Hmm.
that teachers can take it free because I it's just like that's my mission. So so again, anybody who can help me, make those connections would be great.
Yeah.
Anybody who wants to teach this, I'm happy to help them so that they can teach it on their own.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, lots that you and I can talk about after we're done here, but I would definitely be interested in that. I think you and I've done a little bit of research on each other as far as like some of the things that I'm working on. I can
Yeah.
definitely see this aspect, right, of teaching teachers. If um, we have access to people that are molding the minds of young students, and we can get this great content in front of them so they can teach that to them, then I think that's a win-win for everybody. So absolutely.
Thank you.
You bet. You bet. Well, Mitchell, thank you so much for your time and for your expertise. Thanks for reaching out and wanting to be on the podcast. It means a lot that my little podcast, what shall we call this, hobby, is getting out there where people can actually find some stuff and get some good inspiration and some good ideas. So that means a lot to me, and I appreciate your time.
And you've had some very inspiring speakers. So I'm
Yeah,
glad to be a part of it in my own
absolutely,
way.
absolutely. Well, we will talk to you soon. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That was Mitch Weisburgh, and what a powerful conversation. If you found yourself nodding along or thinking, wow, I do operate in survival mode, then it's time to explore Mitch's tools at mindshiftingwithmitch.com. His upcoming AI-powered course is going to be a game changer, so make sure to request early access. As always, if this episode inspired you, share it with someone who leads others or is trying to lead themselves well. Until next time, keep learning, keep leading, and stay empowered.